Brought to you by Penguin.
One Shot by Lee Child. Read by Kerry Shale. Friday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe the hardest time to move unobserved through a city, or maybe the easiest. Because at 5 o'clock on a Friday, nobody pays attention to anything except the road ahead. The man with the rifle drove north, not fast, not slow. He was in a light-colored minivan. He was wearing a light-colored raincoat and a light-colored beanie hat. It was pulled down low. The coat was buttoned up high. He was wearing sunglasses, even though the van had dark windows and the sky was cloudy. And he was wearing gloves, even though the weather wasn't cold. Traffic slowed where First Street started up a hill. Then it stopped where two lanes became one because the blacktop was torn up for construction. The man with the rifle checked his watch. 11 minutes. Be patient. He took his foot off the brake and crawled ahead. There was a parking garage on the left, then more construction, where the garage was being extended. Further ahead, the street was blocked by a low wall. Behind it was a pedestrian plaza with an ornamental pool and a fountain. On the plaza's left, the city library. On its right, a new office building. Behind it, a black glass tower with the NBC peacock on a monolith near its entrance. First Street turned in front of the plaza's boundary wall and ran away west under a raised highway. The man in the minivan slowed before he hit the turn in front of the plaza and entered the parking garage. There was no barrier because each slot had its own parking meter. He wound around the ramps to the second level and headed for the far back corner. He left the van idling in the aisle as he moved a traffic cone from the slot he wanted. It was the last space in the old part of the building, next to where the new part was being added on. He drove the van into the slot and shut it down. The slot he had protected with the traffic cone had been the only one available. The garage was always packed. It was used by shoppers. That was why it was quiet at 5 o'clock. Nobody in their right mind would try to leave during rush hour, not with the construction delays. Either they would get out by 4 or wait until 6. The man in the minivan checked his watch. 4 minutes. Easy. He opened the driver's door and slid out, put a quarter in the meter, saw the clockwork give him an hour in exchange. He stood next to the van. On his feet he had a pair of old desert boots, khaki suede with crepe soles, much favored by Special Forces soldiers. He opened the minivan's sliding rear door and unfolded a blanket and revealed the rifle. It was a Springfield M1A Supermatch auto loader, American walnut stock, heavy premium barrel, 10-shot box magazine, chambered for the .308. The commercial equivalent of the sniper rifle the American military had used during his years in the service. It was loaded with Lake City M852s, special Lake City match brass, Federal powder, Sierra Match King 168-grain hollow point boat-tail bullets. He carried the rifle to where the new part of the garage began. There was "Caution, do not enter" tape strung between two pillars. He dropped to one knee and slid under it, stood up, and walked on. Parts of the new concrete floor were smooth and parts were rough, still waiting for a final surface. There was cement dust everywhere. The man with the rifle walked on in the darkness until he came close to the new northeast corner. He put his back against a raw concrete pillar. He was about 8 feet from the garage's new perimeter wall. He inched forward until he felt the corner of the pillar between his shoulder blades, turned his head. He was looking north and east, directly into the plaza. The ornamental pool was maybe 80 feet by 20. It was bounded by 4 waist-high brick walls. His line of sight ran on a diagonal from its near front corner to its far back corner. The front wall of the pool was about 3 feet behind the wall separating the plaza from First Street. The two low walls ran close together and parallel for 20 feet, with just the width of a narrow walkway between them. He was on the garage's second floor, but the way First Street ran uphill meant the plaza was much.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?